Hi, my name is Sky, and I have a message for Paramount Pictures concerning the new G.I. Joe film, which you are going to be in production in February 2008. Um, as far as the whole changing G.I. Joe from a real American hero to a global initiative, joint operating entity, and just globalizing the idea and the theme of it. Hey, I don't care. It's your guys' project. Do whatever you want. You want to make a movie that's going to appeal to around the world. So that's understandable. I just think that you got to be real careful in how you approach the subject, and especially because the thing to realize is that you know the enemy of G.I. Joe traditionally was Cobra. Cobra was a terrorist organization bent on ruling the world. Now, the cartoon had G.I. Joe, shooting lasers. Everybody survived. The bad guys were laughable, and they couldn't get anything done, almost. And people survived. To make a live-action film, unless you're going to go the route of like Street Fighter, with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Raul Julia, um, a lot of people are probably going to want a very realistic, thing. Also, you could potentially, and it's too bad you're shying away from it, but you could just go the route of the comic book, which has a lot of potential, and it's an adult idea, a lot of people dying, there's a lot of things going on in the comic book. But if you're going to go this route, my concern and what I'm hoping that the writers of the script will realize is that any enemy you have for you know this GI Joe group, they need to be kind of equal. They have to essentially be equal to the enemy, and that gives a lot more tension, a lot more stress and struggle, and it's a lot more interesting to watch because if the enemy can just be wiped out like nothing, well, what's the joy? What's the fun in watching that? Where there's like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? Feeling. So you have to, in my opinion, a good story, you're going to have that. You're going to have, the good guys and bad guys are going to be about equal. And in order for the good guys to beat the bad guys, you either have to sacrifice or you have to risk everything, to achieve. And that's what's going to draw people in. Now, so because of that, you have to be careful in like, well, how are you going to treat people being killed? Because if the enemy is equal to the good guys, if the bad guys are equal to the good guys, it's trade loss for loss kind of thing. But it's also you can't have it that a bunch of the good guys are going to be killed off, but when it comes time to beat the bad guys, they can just mow right over them. It's like Osama bin Laden. How come Osama bin Laden's not killed, captured, dead, whatever? Because he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He's a very challenging opponent. So that's the other thing to worry about and realize is that you got to be careful who is the enemy, who's the bad guy going to be, because if you're going to go with the way things are right now, you're going to upset a lot of Muslim and Middle Eastern people with okay, so it's this global entity with an obvious American U.S. Kind of background and theme to them, and they're fighting against this group of people who are from one part of the world. So that's the other concern and fear. But I hope that what I'm expressing and saying about you can't have you can't have the enemy just appear weak, and just like, okay, so why did all these guys have to die if the enemy is so weak? So I'm hoping that comes across. And as far as making an international force, sure, why not? But in my opinion, you could do a lot with this. You could make it starting a franchise. Something else is that some of the themes and ideas you could use and follow is use the Peacemaker, using with George Clooney and Nicole Kidman as an example. Watching that film, I'm thinking these guys are G.I. Joe. The Unit on CBS is another good example, of how to present the material, how to have these guys, a group of guys who are well trained, they know what they're doing, and you have losses and things happen. Something else is that if you're going to have soldiers, make it realistic in that you have people drinking, you have people swearing, you have people dying, you have an element of sex in there as well. These are things that, yeah, this is soldiers. This is what they live with. And I should use service members, by the way, so I apologize. I mean I mean service members. I mean all branches of the service, and I mean people from around the world, regardless of what, uniform you wear, what, way you separate yourselves. Um, so in my opinion, you could go the way of the comic book and just, have it be his organization. Remove the idea of Al-Qaeda and Muslim terrorists and extremists, and just have it be, Cobra. Have it be this international group that, they use elements and they use ideas that, modern terrorists use, which, could be a good or a bad thing. So I just hope that, whoever's making this film, whoever's, writing this film, that's considered and realizes that, treat the subject matter very serious. Have somebody think like, okay, I'm Cobra Commander. How would I do? Or what would I do? How would I run things? How would I obtain power and go about it? And if you want to, then use the names. But so yeah, it's a real touchy, scary issue and topic. So I hope something serious and something fun for the fans can be made, and something that if you do want to follow the idea of like expanding this into like a toy line or a franchise, that what'll help it, what'll keep it going, is that you treat the subject seriously, and that people can really identify with what's going on. So you can have this international force, you can have them facing sort of modern real world issues and overcoming them in that way. Just don't make them too powerful as well. You have to have that. Some of your heroes, some of your buddies are going to die, and not just the red shirts. Not just like the cannon fodder guys, because hey, for those of us who were, we don't like seeing that. We don't like the idea. Oh, we're just going to get ordered into a trap and killed. So I hope this helps.